and he's his old violent self, as we can see in this attack on the Krampus.
The fancy pants. I've been naughty. Going in my house on Christmas! FlynnsArcade.
Hi, this is FlynnsArcade, and this is my video about A Very Venture Christmas, with special reference to this book here. I'm going to talk about the plot of the episode and any highlights I've noticed, and finally I'm going to give the episode a rating out of 10. Before I start, please can you do me a favour and drop me a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And now, let's go. In this episode, via a series of dream sequences, including one of the party at the Venture compound, we learn more about how Christmas is celebrated in the Ventureverse. This episode portrays the excitement and difficulties of family holidays and the challenge of bringing people who wouldn't normally interact together. The use of dream sequences makes us question what we are seeing and how reliable and permanent the events depicted in the Ventureverse actually are. Since the boys were dead, or at least seriously injured, at the end of the season 1 finale, and the Monarch and Doc's girlfriends had split up and the Monarch was in prison, it's odd to see them all happily celebrating Christmas together in their respective family homes. I like to think that this episode is gearing us up for the shocking revelations about Hank and Dean, which we're about to see in the season 2 premiere. Dream sequences are a trope that is used sometimes in soap operas and other long-running dramas when the writers want to backpedal on a plot device which they've used earlier on. And it's used heavily in this episode, and I just wonder if, consciously or unconsciously, this device was used to kind of prime us as the viewer for the shocking developments when we go to the season 2 premiere, when we learn about, you know, what's actually happened to Hank and Dean, because last we saw they were in a pretty fiery bike crash, and now, you know, they're alive and well, so what's going to happen? The moral compass of Dr. Venture is a running theme throughout this episode, as we see him dream about A Christmas Carol and It's Wonderful Life. However, he is finally declared wicked in the scene with Krampus.
The beast will not stop until it has punished the wicked in this house.
Well, there's no one wicked. Hey, what the hell are you? Oh, for the love of the... Oh, that's the line. Okay, that's it, mister. Get out. Oh, run!
And so, as you can see, despite the debates around this, yeah, Dr. Venture is finally declared, like, wicked in this episode. I mean, he's always had, you know, quite a morally dubious side to him, but no, he, you know, canonically he is in this one. A new character, Tiny Joseph, adds quite a bit of humour into this episode.
Oh, that was close.
Get out of there, Tiny Joseph. Your work is done. Return to base.
He's so super specific, and I can't think of any other villainous activity he could legitimately accomplish other than being Tiny Joseph and doing his Tiny Joseph crib invasion activity. This episode isn't canon on account of it being, you know, entirely a dream sequence. However, we learn some new facts about some of the characters, and it's quite possible that some of the events depicted are canon. It's just that they happened off screen and are being recreated now in Dr. Venture's subconscious. Most notably, a visibly pregnant Sally Impossible, plus Steve Summers, Sasquatch, and Dr. Brisby's bodyguard Mandalay are spotted in the backgrounds of the party. However, an invitation to the Venture compound being extended to Sally and her husband seems, you know, somewhat implausible, considering that Professor Impossible tried to unalive Dr. Venture and Sally has a very unwelcome crush on him. So, and also, like, even Mandalay, I've never seen Mandalay interact with the family in any sort of friendly way. In fact, he tried to kidnap Dr. Venture a few episodes back. So the inclusion of these characters adds really, you know, surreal elements to the episode. And the fact as well that Dr. Venture's dream of a party in his house is populated with his, you know, his enemies, his mortal enemies, as opposed to a large group of friends. You know, it's a bit of an interesting window into his psyche as to how, like, lonely he might be, and also how twisted his worldview is after all these years of living the dangerous boy adventure lifestyle. However, as a British person, I'm used to the Christmas tradition of pantomimes, and these are like sort of family-friendly shows which are often depictions of fairy tales such as Cinderella or Puss in Boots or any of the old stories. And often there's a villain like a wicked witch or an evil queen or, you know, an evil king or whatever. And despite all of the adventures and skullduggery and evil deeds, at the end of the pantomime, like, we're always treated to a sort of a, you know, festive gathering on stage where you see the villains and the heroes all interacting with each other alike. So it could be just something like that in line with the Christmas spirit of the episode. Pete White gets some terrible character development in this episode when he hits on Triana.
You know, I was the first DJ at my college radio station to play the Bauhaus.
That's great. Wow, that makes you like 60 or something, huh?
Nope, just cool. Ah, mistletoe.
We know that Triana is still at school, so my guess she's about 17 years old. We also know that Pete was at university with Dr. Venture, who is, you know, who's now 43, so my guess is that Pete's of a similar age to him. This is all kinds of gross. The other characters' comments about Pete being gay slightly mitigate him chatting up Triana, because at least we know he wasn't after something physical, but the whole scene is pretty troubling. However, his really cringe-worthy chat-up line about the Bauhaus and Triana's response are all kinds of awesome, as is Dr. Orpheus fending him off, albeit in a deeply embarrassing way for his daughter.
My pumpkin's maidenhead is not a prize to be!
Dad!
Despite Triana's embarrassment, I still think he's a legend for doing this. I'm doing pretty much everything we've seen him do so far in the Ventureverse. However, the main character development is kind of reverse character development, or negative character development, or character devolvement. Because in the pilot episode, I noticed that Brock has two attributes. He's sexy and he's violent. During the course of season 1, he's been slowly deconstructing this, as we've learned about his more sensitive side and his loving, if dysfunctional, relationship with Molotov. In this episode, though, we see that his sexy, promiscuous nature is back with a vengeance, as we spot his interesting choice in Christmas movies.
Here they are. Miracle on 69th Street, Jingle Balls, Frothy the Blue Man, Rudolph the Red...
Okay, Hank. Listen, I need help putting up the lights, okay?
And he's his old violent self, as we can see in this attack on the Krampus.
Fancy pants. I've been naughty. Going in my house on Christmas!
But his gift to Hank is very kind and thoughtful.
Still haven't gotten anything for the boys?
Well, Hank's covered. Had my old bass restrung, and I painted over the zebra stripes, but Dean's a little...
More feminine?
tougher to shop for.
So it's really nice to see the friendship between him and Hank that we saw slowly develop throughout season 1 continue to develop. And also Hank's bass is probably one of the nicest presents that anyone's ever given to anyone ever, because as we know, it's going to become such a big part of his life in the future. After we witness the miserable decline and the eventual breakup of the Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend's relationship during season 1, it's quite nice to see them in happier times, and this episode gives us hope for the future for the couple.
Joseph has managed to slip into the Venture compound and cleverly booby-trap it. At the strike of midnight, Dr. Venture will place his precious porcelain baby Christ in its manger. Oh. And when he does, it will set off a series of explosions that will deck his halls with bowels of Venture! What?
That model was supposed to be a surprise.
I peeked.
However, as this clip's just shown, he really will need to work a bit on his obsession with the Venture family if he wants to win Dr. Girlfriend back, because even there, even in the dream sequence, she's not impressed with his obsessive ways. After the pilot episode was broadcast, Adult Swim boss Mike Lazo told Doc Hammer and Jackson Public to start giving the boys distinct personalities to differentiate them from each other. One of the dream sequences actually manages to do this, with Hank appearing confident and cocky.
Hello there! Hey? What's today, my fine fellow?
Today? Duh, it's Christmas Day.
And Dean acting broody and miserable.
Why didn't he wish me a Merry Christmas? Nobody wants a Dean in the box!
So even in this surreal sequence, we can see that they are pretty different. Hank's becoming more extroverted and more, confident and outwardly cheerful, whereas Dean is, becoming more introverted and more, inclined towards sensitivity and seeing the darker side of life. And now, as we move forward through season 2, I'm going to keep a special eye out to see if these character traits are brought out any further. Throughout season 1, I did notice some differences in that I noticed Dean being slightly more scholarly than his brother and certainly a little bit more sensitive than him, and Hank being a bit bigger and tougher and a bit bolder than Dean. So there was a bit of that going on, but those could have been just like superficial character traits, whereas now I'm actually starting to build up a real psychological profile of the two characters. As to the jokes of this episode, I particularly enjoyed the part where Dr. Venture's dream sequence is completely influenced by him falling asleep on his remote control.
Children can hear my stories, and I don't want any ground floors or any plastics. Rude, you weird little man. Early in the boat.
Behold, it's Christ.
976, 37.5 foot pole.
You're a cowboy that rides an ostrich. Oh, thank God. I thought I turned into a complete
Yeah, as you can see, that's pretty funny. I quite like the fact he's sort of, he's drooling onto his remote control, and also the idea that all these Christmas TV shows are getting into his subconscious as he's asleep and influencing all his dreams. And also, I don't know what he says at the end of that clip, but I think he says "f*** it," but I'm not sure. But either way, it's pretty funny. I also quite like this exchange between Hank and Brock, which is made just off the back of Hank finding Brock's adult films.
Hey, baby Jesus is out of the manger.
Huh? Oh, no, that doesn't go there until midnight.
Which, the fact he's just found the adult films adds a whole other element to a joke that's pretty funny anyway. I also enjoyed the Monarch spit take here.
Who is this? He's blowing my big thing!
The fact he's drinking champagne whilst Dr. Girlfriend decorates the Christmas tree in the background adds a really nice festive touch to the joke. As to the style of this episode, it's only 15 minutes long, which is, the usual length for an Adult Swim cartoon back in the day. But it's unusually short for a Venture Brothers episode. A normal episode is like 30 minutes long. The episode, when it was first conceived, was originally supposed to be 7 minutes long, because Jackson Public pitched the idea of a festive block of Adult Swim episodes that were all 7 minutes long and they were all Christmas themed in some way. But unfortunately, the other shows pulled out, which is a shame because it sounds like a really good idea. It's just that eventually it was only the Venture Brothers left, and so they decided to rework the episode into a 15-minute long episode. I actually think the dream sequences work really well to accommodate the shorter episode length. I'm not a fan of this episode, and I even considered not covering it at all on account of the episode not being canon. However, because I covered the pilot, I figured I had to make a video about this one because the pilot wasn't canon either. I found it really jarring to see Hank and Dean still alive, and to see the Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend back together and the Monarch not being in prison. Because it was just really strange to see it after the incredible, powerful events of this finale of season 1. I think the episode really suffered as a result of being reworked from the original concept of being like a 7-minute long episode. I was very relieved to read in the book that Doc Hammer describes the episode as f***ing depressing, and it made me feel that I wasn't on my own in not particularly liking this episode. I really didn't like the part where Dr. Venture turns into Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Hello! Merry Christmas, you old fountain!
I just find it a bit weird and creepy. I get what the joke is, but I kind of needed to really think about it, and and so yeah, I don't think it was pulled off that effectively. It just looked like Dr. Venture flying through the air and he was wearing just his underpants, which is a bit peculiar. And I also, as you might have guessed, really didn't enjoy the scene between Pete White and Triana. It just creeped me out, and whilst I enjoyed the joke about the Bauhaus and Triana giving him a put down, it was pretty weird for reasons already discussed, so that, lowers the score quite a bit. And so I'm going to give this episode a 5 out of 10. This is the worst score I've given to any Venture Brothers episode. I mean, I've always said there's no such thing as a bad Venture Brothers episode. I mean, even something like this, it's better than most of the stuff you see on TV. But because of it not being canon and because of it being a short episode, and that lowers the score. I mean, just as a bit of a caveat for this, I actually watched this episode in the middle of May, which is when I'm making this video. So I might have liked it a bit more if I watched it in season. But yeah, with the sun shining outside and stuff, it did feel quite jarring to watch, and that might have reduced the score slightly. Now, I'm really looking forward to reviewing the Season 2 premiere, Powerless in the Face of Death. It's one of my favourite all-time Venture Brothers episodes, so yeah, that's going to be great, and that's the thing I'm going to do next in my series. And seeing that amazing episode will honestly help remove a very Venture Christmas from my memory, which I'm really looking forward to. Feel free to check out any of the other videos I've made. Mostly I've been doing videos on the Venture Brothers, but I've done a few other videos as well. Please can you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments if you've got anything to add. Did you agree with my view on this episode? I know I was quite negative about it, which is quite unusual because I'm such a big Venture Brothers fan, but I had to find one that I didn't like, and so, but maybe you absolutely love this episode and let me know. If you don't have anything to say but you'd quite like to help the channel, please just drop me a Go Team Venture, because that will, apparently that really helps the algorithm. And so that's all from me. Unless something comes up in the meantime, I'll see you next Sunday.